Welcome to Kicking and Eating. I'm your host, Shihan Chef Yah Sigidi. Welcome to another episode. Today's episode, we continue to talk to the brother, HERU NEKHET, about taking the test to become a master craftsman and enduring in 120-degree heat in the desert in Aswan, Egypt. Running over 5 miles and being intercepted by different fighters in each mile. Being one of the youngest to be inducted to the Martial Arts Hall of Fame. And creating his own system called the Tough System. Today on Kicking and Eating. Kicking and Eating, Kicking and Eating. We talk about martial arts and what's happening. Kicking and Eating, Kicking and Eating. We're bricking bread on the spot thing. Kicking and Eating, Kicking and Eating. Kicking and Eating with my guest, that's a sure thing. Kicking and Eating, Kicking and Eating. Our praises due to the one that made all things.
You took the test of the Master Craftsman, right? For the people, is this something you could talk about, or?
Sure. So I was in Aswan, Egypt, and how long was it? All right, so and now it's 120 degrees.
Yeah,
hot,
I know.
Hot, and I had to run 5 miles first.
Wow.
And then I had to stand in a posture. We call it olamwengo. Olamwengo means to hold up the earth.
Okay.
Similar to, I guess, what in Asian style is a horse stance. But if you see African statues, you'll see them, in this posture, and you'll see a round belly with rays coming out. We call it the moyo.
Okay.
Right? So I had to stand in that posture for a half an hour. So now running through the bush.
Yeah.
And they put a new runner on each mile on me, right? So then I had to beat them.
Wow.
Then I had to stand perfectly still for a half an hour. That half an hour in 120 degrees on the banks of the Nile River, and my face is covered with flies. The flies there are super aggressive, trying to go in every orifice in my face. And if I quit, test was over, right?
Wow.
So after that, I had to demonstrate, because there's nine forms. It was 5th level, 45 different forms I had to demonstrate. Then I had to fight bare knuckle full contact.
Wow.
I fought 4 times full contact, and then they asked for volunteers from the village. Anybody else who wanted some?
Wow.
Nobody else wanted any. Had 4 fights, 4 wins, 2 by knockout. So yeah, at that point, I was like, "No, we don't want none."
Yeah, that's the stuff you see in movies and karate flicks,
right?
Yeah, but in real life,
yeah, absolutely. And then I had to come home and I had to fight again because all the grandmasters came together, the Harlem School of the Arts and schools from around the country, and they put their best fighters up there, and I had to fight them and win too. So
wow,
yeah, it was a grueling test.
Because but you were saying that you had to endure. You kind of remind me of Jesus walking through the desert 40 days and 40 nights. And with you, I want to know how instrumental at that time were you a vegan? How your eating habits?
I became a vegan in, I'd say, 1989.
Yeah.
Which is before it was really popular.
Yeah.
And I had already started that journey when it's strange how I met him from DC. So I had already started going through an initiation, a Kemetic initiation, and so I was already learning, the cultural aspects.
Yeah.
And my person who was initiating me said, "You need to learn African martial arts."
Yeah.
And so I just happened to run into him at somebody else's school.
Wow.
And I was like, "Wow,
things happen."
Yeah,
see what I mean?
I'm training with you. And so he just took it further for me, So, but we had to learn more than just diet. We learned diet. We learned, history and language and culture and spirituality and
stretching and all
governance.
That stuff.
And we had the whole thing about being a fundi. And fundi was, they say you can drop a fundi in the middle of a desert, come back a year later, and it's a thriving civilization.
Yeah.
So everything that it would take to set up and lead a civilization, we were taught.
Yeah.
That whole movement came out of really the black nationalist movement of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And so, they were still on that strong thing, like, black nationalism. You need to be able to be self-sufficient. You need to be able to, be strong and maintain your diet. And so, yeah, it influenced me. I was, young at that time, influenced me greatly.
Wow. Your success. Do you feel that as a martial artist, because you have a lot of schools popping up today, do you feel that And I've seen another class you did where you're talking about basically how to choose the right business and things like that.
Right.
Do you feel that like most people could be successful by doing a martial arts class, or that's for just?
I think it depends on the teacher. You
Okay.
know, my approach is always that the skills you develop in the class should translate into everything you do in life. If you're not going to come to my class and walk away with just how to punch and kick, you know, you have to be a critical thinker. You have to be somebody who's driven and who doesn't quit. Like, those things are so important, and you have to understand how the principles that are taught in class relate to everything in the world. And you have to apply them. You know, and the support. You know, I think it's important that your classmates become more than just classmates, that they become your support system. They really become like a family. So if you're in the right school, if you're in the right school, absolutely, you can become successful in anything that you do.
All right. Tell us about Martial Arts Hall of Fame. You know, what was your day like? You woke up. Did you have new gear?
It was surreal. And, you know, because I think I was the youngest probably person who got inducted that year. And it was great because I had a lot of my old students came back for it. My family was there. You know, it was a nice feeling. You know, some other martial artists who are pretty famous were getting inducted at the same time.
Wow.
You know, so it was, to me, it felt good to be recognized, of course, but I never did it for that. You know what I mean? I never expected it, never did it for that, but it was great to be recognized, especially, like I said, amongst some giants that were there. So you know, it was a great feeling.
Wow, that's great. That's great. What is the tough system? I know it's tactical, unbeatable fighting. You know,
tough system.
Okay,
so, and people always say, "What, technically unbeatable fighting?" Like, people get offended. You know, tough system is something that I developed. So one thing that we have to understand about martial arts, I think one of the great things and one of the flaws at the same time, is that martial arts tends to be very conservative in terms of change. Right? It's very nostalgic. It's loyal to the beginnings. But what we have to understand is that every martial system originated to deal with a particular set of threats in a particular place with particular societal norms and rules. And so no matter how much you master that, when you take it out of the context in which it was created and put it somewhere else, it loses some of its effectiveness. And so one of the issues that I had with even African martial arts, which is super dynamic, it's amazing, is that there were some shortcomings for the environment I found myself in. Because again, I had so much experience in real fighting and so much experience, you know, witnessing things when I worked for the police department, all these things. I realized that we don't have anything for gun disarming. You know, because it wasn't created in that context. And I'm learning how to use a sword and a spear. Like, I'm not going to carry a sword and a spear. I'm training barefoot. I'm never going to. 99% of the time, I'm not barefoot. You know, so. To me, and I'm not going to really go into the animals too much. So for me, I was like, well, I kind of fell back on the mindset of what my father had taught me, because again, he took out all the forms. I didn't learn forms at Okadas when I was a kid. You know, we did a lot of sparring.
And that's how it was for that's how it was for most schools, as far as coming from Moses Powell, George Cofield, a lot of the guys, because back then, a lot of these Asian guys did not really teach the African Americans the katas, you know what I mean, and the forms. You know, even if once we learned it, we were most of the times better, our rhythm and everything, and even the fighting, you know. But I think, like you said, one of the people, Bruce Lee, I think was one of the people who took it to the other level, because he didn't want to be rigid. You know, he said, you know what, let me take a little of this, let me take a little of that, as more of a self-defense aspect. Because my grandmaster, from his perspective, he taught under George Cofield and other people, but his thing was self-defense was first. You know?
So taking it a step further than Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee had the idea. He took a little of this, a little of this, a little of this. My issue with that is there's no continuity in the system when you do that, right? So that means you have to learn how to ground fight, you have to learn how to stand up fight, you have to learn how to use the knife, right? Which is as something's totally separate, which means your brain has to do too much thinking in different situations.
Yeah.
So my philosophy is you take principles and you create an entire system that can be utilized in any environment, in any climate, on any terrain. Whether you're on the ground, up close, standing up, weapons, it doesn't change.
Yes.
And so the mind can just do it, but your body can do it rather without having to think. And so I created the tough system originally just for myself.
Yeah.
You know, because I was like, yeah, you know, I need to kind of streamline this and get back to a lot of the things my father taught me. And then I was practicing. A couple of my Kubagana students caught me practicing, and they was like, "Hey, you never taught us that. Can you teach us that?" And I was like, At first I was like, no. Then I taught it, and then they kept saying, "You need to teach a course. You need to teach a course." So I really had no concept of, okay, I'm going to create a system to teach with it at first. And I said, okay, let me see, because a lot of people seem to be interested. So I did a workshop first. And the workshop was called The Secret Art of Killing.
Oh, wow.
And
I know they was like, what?
Yeah. And so it was packed. And I was like, okay, at the end, I said, how many of you would be interested in doing a full course, a 1-year training? And, you know, people said they would. And so my first class, I had nine guys who started. But my early classes were brutal. I worked you hard. Because my thing was, it was more so about making you not quit.
Yeah.
Right? So anybody can do it when they're not tired.
Yeah.
But can you do it under duress? Can you do it under stress? Because that's what a real fight is.
Yeah,
like.
Because that's what the special ops and everything, that's what they train under. Because you have to be able to have that mindset to think and be efficient. That's like the same thing when you trials of passage.
Right.
You know, that's the same thing when you get in a higher degree.
Right.
You basically you go through a series of cardio workout where you're so out of it. But at the same time, you have to be focused.
Right. So it's a 3-hour class.
Yeah.
First hour, I'm just wearing you out. And then let's develop the skills and see if you can perform when you're tired, when you think you don't have it anymore. So I started with 9, 3 graduated that first year.
See?
And that was 1999 is the first class. 2000 I graduated the first class, and I've been doing it twice a year. So I start one class in October, one in April.
All right.
And so I've been doing that since 1999.
And what are the requirements?
Okay, so it's an all-male class.
Okay.
So people say, oh, why is it all-male? Okay, so one of the things that I discovered early, and my African martial arts class is co-ed, by the way.
Okay.
So people say, oh, you don't have a women's class? Yes, I do. And I have a women's self-defense class, too.
Yeah.
One thing that I understood early is about men, and it's not a conscious thing. It's the way we're wired is that we compete with each other, and testosterone makes us do that.
Okay,
right. And if you throw a woman in the mix, not even consciously, a man will focus on trying to really impress, a woman. And it throws the whole balance off. And one of the good things about tough is we call it man church, right?
Yeah.
So it's a judgment-free zone where men can come in, take the armor off at the door, and be vulnerable and expose themselves.
Okay.
So that we can build them up.
Okay.
Right. And with a woman in the room, they don't feel comfortable taking that armor off. They don't feel comfortable being vulnerable.
To the one that made all things. Jumbo, 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 jumbo. Big up the ranks that's hitting like gumbo. Podcast lit like power with a jitsu. EP down from bouncy to bolo. Fire with the topics but not interview. Itty to gritty like sharp as Ginsu. Each one teach one, then we continue. Build and destroy all negative around you. Spilling all the beans so we could grow and feed you. Like and subscribe so we could later hit you.